Just get my thoughts collected here. If you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which is the republic, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next item is the consent agenda and public comments. We'll take the consent agenda first, which includes the agenda itself and the minutes from the August 12th regular meeting. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented? Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor? Aye. We have a slight change in our agenda, and that's we're going to move up our presenters from Felix and Glickner for our financial statements. So whoever would like to present, we're ready for you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Hello, welcome back.
Yes. There we go. So everybody has a copy of the Blueback report? Perfect. We'll turn to page 3 to start with the independent auditor's report. That we have starts right out with the opinion that we've audited the financial statements of the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Erie as of December 31st, 2023. And that it is, in our opinion, that the statements do present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the authority at that time. Basis for that opinion was that we had conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards, generally accepted in the United States of America. The responsibilities of management, that management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and for the design, implementation, and maintenance of the internal controls to prepare those. On page 4, talks about the auditor's responsibility, that it is our objective to obtain a reasonable assurance that the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue a report that includes our opinion. On page 5, the supplementary information there, we do a single audit for the Redevelopment Authority because of the federal funds that are received. This year, the American Rescue Plan funding was the grant funding that was audited, and we had no reportable findings on that. We could jump ahead to page 13. Looking at the numbers there, the balance sheet as of December 31st, we had total assets of $10,067,000. Most of that in our cash and cash equivalents. We had total liabilities of $9,974,000. Most of that in the unearned revenue, which was the $9,651,000, which again is related to that American Rescue funding money. We received all of that up front and then have, I believe it's till 2026 to spend that money. So that left us with a total fund balance of $92,000. $10,000 of that is restricted, $38,000 non-spendable, leaving $44,000 unassigned. If you turn to page 15, the revenue and expenditures and the changes in those fund balances. The total revenues this year, $3,122,000. Again, most of that in that federal funding, you'll see there $2,179,000. That was a pretty big increase from last year. I think we had about 300-some thousand in the American Rescue funds, and this year it was closer to 1.6. The total expenditures, $2,997,000. So overall for the year, we had an increase in our fund balance of $124,193. Are there any questions on the numbers? There were no changes in the footnotes. Those are similar to the prior years. The back part is the government auditing standards and the uniform guidance, the federal funding, the letters on those, showing no findings. And on page 32, as I had mentioned, that the American Rescue Plan Act was the federal program that was audited this year with no findings. The letter that did you give that out before, the letter? That's okay, I can just go through it. Yeah, I can go through it. So basically, in the letter to report to you, just kind of goes through our responsibilities again. The planning and timing, some of the questions that have come up is the significant risks identified, which I think those of you that were here for the land bank, I explained that. That as part of the audit, we are required to identify improper revenue recognition. Not that we found any issues with that, but that it is something that we need to include in our audit plan as a risk. We did note, much like the land bank was a couple, not this year, but last year, some double recording, some issues with that combined with the QuickBooks Online, which is honestly quite a difficult program to deal with. So there was, just because of the way things were done before, some duplicate recording that we needed to get cleaned up. And April and Corey, I saw him back there, we worked with them and they worked and went through and got that cleaned up. I do know that going forward, I think we're working with Baker Tilly to kind of, in a new program, to work to get that straightened around.
You're smiling, that's a good thing.
Yes, it is a good thing. I think April's smiling too, and Corey and Aaron.
Nothing better than a smiling auditor.
Yes, yes. So I think it'll just help with some of the reporting and getting through some of that, so.
Yeah.
Yep. So, we had no other uncorrected or, the corrected misstatements. Like I said, we really didn't have much in the way of journal entries. We worked with, April and Corey to get them, and they kind of put those in, and then we blessed those, so. But no other significant issues, findings. We appreciate the help. I know it was a little bit challenging at times, but we got through it, and with no findings, so. That's the important part. We appreciate all the help that April, Aaron, and Corey gave us and through this.
Oh, great. And we're aware of the transition and the challenges about
Yes,
that. Yes,
exactly.
But we see that light at that tunnel, right?
Yes.
We all do.
Agreed.
Any questions?
I just have a quick question on page 32, the schedule findings and question costs. So I believe the threshold that you put on here was for $750,000. That's for any federal program that the authority administers, or just the program that's being audited this year?
So what that is that's the threshold for distinguishing what they call type A and type B programs. If your total funds are over 750, obviously it's a single audit at this point. I know that they're raising that bar in the next couple of years. It just hasn't totally come out yet. But the 750 distinguishes type A programs. So
Okay.
anything over 750, we have to consider. I mean, there's a whole thing that goes into it, whether they're low risk, high risk. If they're low risk, we have to assess type B programs, which are anything between 187,
Okay.
5 and the 750.
Okay, I guess my question was more on, is this just for the ARPA program, or is it for?
No, this
all
is
of
for
them?
the whole.
Okay,
Yeah, the whole
thank you.
single. You're welcome.
Other questions?
With respect to the unsecured demand note key bank, is that principal balance, or is that balanced with principal and interest as of December
What-
31st? It's the 157,959. I'm looking at page 23. It's also a line item in the balance sheet. Key bank loan payable.
That is the loan payable that we've been trying with the city, that we are not making any payments on that. We're trying to get that forgiven, so.
Okay. So, I mean, is that the balance that you're reporting on that? Is that principal and interest, or is it just
Right now, that's just the principal.
principal?
And we're still in limbo as to the future of that.
Yes.
Um,
I haven't heard from the Bank in some time currently, so I'm not quite sure where they still stand on that, but that at this point, unless we have a resolution, there's no point in reaching out to the bank to work for a solution until we're ready to do that.
Obviously, they've already written it off as
Yeah, well, the last conversation I had, the gentleman I spoke to had no idea of anything about it. He just wanted me to schedule payments, and I told him to send me the contract and the documents, and that was the last I heard.
Yeah. Do we send any type of audit confirmation to them to let them tell us what we think we owe, or no?
There has not been.
And would that trigger a conversation with them? Would that get their attention perhaps next year? You
It
never
might.
know.
You never know.
Coming from
Or they could
outside
ignore it
party
like the rest.
may provide some leverage for it, because I know
Sure.
this has been going on for
It has been.
a lot of years. And
Until such time that revenues would be able to pay it off, there's really not much else we can do. They don't want our properties. About 150 vacant lots.
well, on a lakeside community, of course, they're valuable.
Right.
Don't undersell the city. Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the auditor's report as presented? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Natalie, and your team. I appreciate that. And
Thank you.
we understand the challenges right now, but we also appreciate you sticking with us and
course.
and supporting our staff.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right, we'll return to our agenda, and we'll be on item B2, citizens' comments, and we'd like to welcome Sherry Mason.
Hello,
Hello.
I am Sherry Mason. I'm coming to you today as a member of the Erie Environmental Advisory Council. We are fairly newly formed, and we just decided that as a committee, we would go on this tour of all the other councils and committees that are part of the city of Erie and kind of make ourselves known, let you know what we're doing, welcome any feedback, thoughts y'all have. So I'll dive in. So the Environmental Advisory Council is established to research identifiable environmental issues in Erie and make recommendations on how best to address those issues. The EAC, Environmental Advisory Council, consists of 7 City of Erie residents that were appointed by local government, either the city council or the mayor. We have identified at this point 2 kind of primary priorities for our council. The first is a local climate action plan, and the second is litter mitigation with a focus on single-use plastics. With regard to the local climate action plan, a local climate action plan is a comprehensive policy tool outlining specific actions that a community will undertake in order to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions and/or adaptation strategies the community will implement to counter the negative effects of climate change. To develop a local climate action plan, the first step is to do a greenhouse gas inventory. This process was started when the city collaborated or participated in a Penn State University program. The idea of that program was to develop the climate action plan. They got partway through the development of the greenhouse gas audit. They were having trouble getting electricity data from First Energy. We have been welcomed back by Penn State a couple of years later to rejoin that program again. So we'll be rejoining that program for this academic year in order to get that greenhouse gas inventory established, set up. Based upon that inventory, then you do outreach to the community, communicate some of the issues. We've actually kind of been doing that because the city got a Partners for Places grant. That phase 1 of that grant is this kind of doing outreach and figuring out what the community identifies as issues within environmental issues within their community. And so we've been participating in that or working on that all summer. I haven't seen the final outcome of that. I think our contracting agency is working on kind of, putting together all that information. But that's the kind of the second step of developing a climate action plan. And then based upon that feedback in the greenhouse gas inventory, you set goals and actions. That's step 3. Step 4 is to obtain the resources to implement those actions. And then step 5 is to actually take action. So that's kind of our main priority of what we're trying to do this year as the Environmental Advisory Council has fully developed that local climate action plan and like I said, in collaboration with this Penn State program. The second thing is a focus on litter mitigation and single-use plastics, with an interest in looking at portable water refill stations, reducing plastic waste at public events, and considering a citywide reusable foodware program. That's what I got.
All right.
Thoughts, comments, questions?
Did you have any recommendations for the authority about best how we operate? I think about, demolition and, the transportation of construction debris and landfill and so on, if you had any comments for us. And
Yeah, actually, I was just in an email conversation with my colleague about this. So apparently, the colleague is out of Georgia, but she works on these, they're called CAPS, and I forget what that stands for. It's not Climate Action Plan. It's a different acronym that
Okay.
means something different. But they're planning to actually work with the Erie's in the 2030 district. And so they're working with the 2030 districts, and specifically Erie's 2030 district, in order to basically assess what happens to debris. And the idea of kind of assessing that ecosystem is to then understand maybe places where you could, where are better places that debris could go? What are other options? Basically intervention points.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be something happening with the Erie 2030 district exactly on that question.
Because I recall that we had a representative from Prism Glass a few years ago looking
Yeah.
at glass recycling from the windows that are, that come from the houses that we demolished. And
Yeah.
I hadn't considered that before.
Yeah, no, and so are y'all making use of that?
I'm sorry?
Are you making use of that?
Are we? Because it's really the contractors that the authority contracts with, and we would have to find ways to encourage folks to do so. I hate to make it a mandate just yet until we can understand, because it could potentially, without education of the contractors, drive
Right.
up costs and so on. So there is a fine line. So I
Yeah.
guess at this point, as chair, I'm just inviting some additional information, and I'd like to, consider this. These are important topics, and get ahead of the curve,
I'm at Gannon University now, but I was at Barron up until June 30th. And I know when we did the federal house project that we diverted 70% of the waste, the construction waste that was associated with that. So Sean Limerick would be a good point of contact to ask, to inquire exactly how that all happened and where it all went, because I don't have the answers for that. But I do think that we each get so busy with our work, it's
Yeah.
nobody's fault, but we have these, we sometimes forget about connections and
Yeah.
looking for things like that.
just awareness at this point. And-
Yeah, so.
I have questions on litter mitigation. You guys, you talked about, with the authority in our lots, we have a growing issue with tires.
Yeah,
And so certainly we are looking for what we can do and how we can help the city figure out what we can do with tires, because we spend a substantial amount of money moving tires from our lot to the city garage or because somehow we end up there.
I can tell you that, sorry, I'm just making a note of that, because I'll think about that. But at Gannon University, we're working, and tomorrow I have a meeting with Public Works on a community change grant. It's a big grant. It's $10 to $20 million. And objective 3 within that grant is to do a citywide cleanup. So we would be working with neighborhood partners, with the Redevelopment Authority, which I hadn't thought about reaching out to, but now I am, to clean up, obviously not the buildings themselves, but all the litter that is around, with the idea that litter begets litter, right? And so when you see litter, it gives people permission to litter. But if the absence of litter, then, to try and foster a sense of ownership by doing this cleanup and using volunteers to do it, so that then maybe that doesn't happen. So,
Yeah, because our lots are literally on a pickup truck scale.
yeah,
So it's what they can dump on a big lot at 2 a.m.
yeah.
When do you guys, when's the advisory council meeting?
We meet on the 4th Wednesday of the month at 3 p.m. Yes. So in the same place. Yeah. But I'll reach out to you about the tires. Yeah. I'm obsessed with trash.
It's a deal, it's a big deal. Anyone else for questions for Dr. Mason?
All right, well, we know, now you know we exist, and if y'all have other thoughts, other questions, other things that you're looking for input on, please reach out to me or any one of the committee members. And we are happy to be of service and work with you guys, so thank you so
All right.
much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And on to our financial consultant updates. Oh, are there any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Snipper, to keeping me on the right path. Hearing none, we'll move on to the financial consultant updates.
Do you want the consultant update before the finance report?
That probably makes sense to do it afterwards, right?
We have, okay, let me see. So I know it's not in this packet right now, but it was part of the email. For Baker Tilly, we had included copies of all of the processes that they had created for us, our current processes for accounts receivable, accounts payable, purchasing, cash receipts, budget management, and expense management. And they did that for Brace and Land Bank. And then that's the starting point that then they are going to reincorporate that for Blackbaud to change those for the new financial software system, as well as making some changes for segregation of duties within the office. And now that we have Corey on board as well, and I think they were also planning on adding some of that burden, putting it back onto like the department heads as well, that they would be directly responsible for putting portions of things into the software system. So then we are reviewing and approving and processing that way. So step one is all of the narratives that they had already given us. We had to add all of the parcel numbers as unique identifiers for each property so that we can pull it up in the new software system that way. They finalized the chart of accounts with all of our accounts and vendors, and they are working on finalizing mapping the files and the transaction data to import templates and begin the process of creating the new database. We actually just had a follow-up email with them on Thursday and again today that we're working on, so we're trying to get that wrapped up so that everything gets pushed off into the Blackbaud system to import.
And just things fall out of my head. On the Blackbaud system, it's Razor's or Financial Edge.
It's Financial
at
Edge,
7?
NXT.
Oh, NXT, okay.
Yes.
And if the other members, if you had a chance to review the Baker Tilly memo, it's pretty good. So I'm going to take a couple more passes through that then and probably use it for my own organization. But no, it helps be reminded about some things, and it looked like a compilation of really some of the best practices.
Yeah.
All right, April, if you want to go on to the
And then, yep, for the finance report, standard, I have the profit and loss, the balance sheet, a copy of the reconciliation report for August, and then the check detail, which shows all of the checks that were dispersed for the month of August. I have, let's see. There we go. So we have right now in our bank accounts, the race checking has, if I could see, did not bring my glasses, sorry. It's $186,619.77. We had checks and payments that had cleared in August for $290,803.06, and then deposits and credits that had cleared for $325,642.64. As part of those deposits, we had requisition receipts from LHRD for a little over $77,000. We had Erie County Whole Home Repair Program, that was $77,650. Erie Land Bank was just under 40,000, and the ARPA funds were just under 90,000 for August. Questions?
Any questions?
A quick question.
Sure.
So there's the $5 million Ironwood Square loan. Has that
Yes.
been entered into with the county redevelopment board?
Yes, that was,
April.
I was going to say March. It was April, yes.
And that reminds me, I had a conversation with Team and Jean, their director, and she would like to meet with us again and kind of discuss the terms and conditions of that loan. So I'm not sure if Erin had a chance to reach out to Tina or not, or she's reached out to you, but it's kind of out there. No emergency, but there's a,
I guess I'm confused. It was set aside in March and April, or it was actually like the loan agreement was entered into?
The loan
The agreement was entered into.
in April.
Okay, yeah, I guess then I'm confused, like what the discussion regarding the terms of the loan would be.
yeah. So, Erin, if you want to reach out to Tina and you know,
Yeah.
get something on our schedule the next couple months, that'd probably be good.
Okay.
Other questions? Hearing none, there's a motion to accept the financial reports as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, April. That's on to items D, which is our solicitor's report. Mr. Sundberg.
Good afternoon, board and staff.
Good afternoon.
Provided you with my September summary of what we've been working on. And I'll hit some of the highlights here. First few, pretty self-explanatory. We have those back. Those properties are getting ready to be transferred and offered and transferred to neighbors. 2708 Downing Street, there was a hearing that was held on Friday the 30th. That actually was the first actual board of view hearing that we had. I thought it went really well. I want to especially thank Aaron for his testimony and help throughout that hearing. He did a great job. And also our appraiser did a very nice job too. There were some unique, as you can see, there were some unique issues associated with that property. We got through it. I think that the evidence that we presented was very straightforward and compelling. We are waiting for that decision, kind of on pins and needles to see how that all goes out. Now, depending upon what the decision is, and just to let you know, there's an automatic right of appeal of either party in front of, from the Board of Viewers to Judge Piccinini. So that is an option for both parties, depending upon how everything comes down. Okay, so we'll let you know as soon as, and I would anticipate that I would get that decision, momentarily here. I was thinking that it would be this week at the very latest and was hoping that it would be for the board today, but it's not yet. So that's in process. The 711 West 18th Street, there has been a view of that building. It's empty, it's vacant. It's a storage, it's being used as a storage for, I think, people who have a secondhand store. It's a bad situation. So it's so bad that the attorney has withdrawn from it. So that hearing is being scheduled, and that should go through without much difficulty. I'm not going to anticipate the pushback that we have received on the other one. So we will have a response and decision on that, I would suspect, within the next 30 to 60 days. Working through Patterson, Franco, that was situation where that property has value, so that offer was made, it's been accepted. So, so we're in the process of making sure that the back taxes are paid out of the offer so that the right entities receive their funds so that it's a clean slate, and then we'll exchange the deed with those funds. So that should happen in short order here. The two properties with Carterino are ongoing. I did get agreements over the weekend. We're holding them and their feet to the fire. That's been kicked down the road so long that we're refusing to let it get kicked again. So their feet are now getting burned and not available to kick a can. The property on 520 East Fifth Street is a real issue that we are monitoring very regularly. Excuse me. We're going to set that up for a board of view and a hearing here in short order, because that's not going to get better with time. Want to jump to Corsello. That's coming to fruition here, I hope. Continuing to contact him on a monthly basis, and also tie in that other ancillary case along with it. 2712 East Avenue, we're waiting for a deed back and a satisfaction on their mortgage. And then last but not least is the property on 324 East 22nd Street. There was a status conference, I guess, of sort, but we're moving that in the same direction as we did with Downing. So keep posted on that. So again, I want to take this opportunity because there are so many moving parts with these properties that my office is relying upon Aaron extensively, and he is very much responsive, keeping us posted with regard to the status of the properties, so that as we push this forward, we're aware he's not only taking care of things here, but he's the boots on the ground as well for these properties. So, and again, his testimony was very important and instrumental with regard to the Downing property. Again, so I want the board to be aware of that, because without that help and guidance, it's a struggle every step of the way. So we sincerely appreciate that. Any questions?
Just want to make a comment. I'm very encouraged to hear about the Corsello situation here. I know it will be good to have that go away, and
Very much so.
because I think about the exposure and that we might have with an open case potentially, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that it would be a big relief for all of us.
Okay, very
Absolutely.
good. And I realize that it's a process, so
Yeah.
thank you. Any questions for Attorney Sundberg?
Thank you.
Hearing none, thank you. All right, item E is our unfinished new business. Before we start with the election of officers, I wanted to mention that Erin and I had a chance to meet with our new board member, Andy Fair. We met with her on Friday, then, and delighted with her background. She comes from she's a nurse and comes from a healthcare background, so very much interested in our Healthy Homes programs and, the programs that relate to the success of our families that we're helping. So she could not make it today. I think she's going to participate by Zoom next time, and then start the in-person rotations. So that's a little further down on our agenda. We're going to talk about meeting times and so on to make things a little more, to accommodate some schedules then. But I just want to mention that. We thank the mayor's office for moving that nomination ahead. I'm very excited. Andy, I don't know if you had anything else to add on that.
No, I think it went very well. I think she'll make a good fit to the team of board members that we have, brings in a different skill set, and which, I certainly appreciate is that, everyone brings their unique skills to the table as far as, assistance to the authority. And I think she will add that as far as, we continue down that social determinants of health, healthy homes, but, that type of road. So, look forward to her serving.
All right, well, thank you. So now on to election of officers. I'm not sure what our bylaws require. If we have a campaign? Do we?
Yeah, you're supposed to put signs out 30 days
convention.
before.
What's our budget?
Yeah, 10 signatures.
So probably the easiest thing to do is ask if the existing officers would remain in their positions. I should know this.
So we do have, so currently the vice chair is vacant with the departure of Aaron Carey.
Oh.
That left vice chair vacant. Certainly, it would be, in my opinion, that as a new board member coming in, assistant secretary treasurer would fit a new board member perfectly, since there's really no duties and responsibilities there for at least the next calendar year until August. So then we would just need to find a vice chair to fill the seat. And then that would, fit the current slate if it
So you're
was
suggesting
chosen. So,
leaving the vice chair open for Andy to accept that position then?
yes. Currently, our assistant secretary treasurer is Mr. Toman.
Oh.
It's a good seat for new board members.
Well, what have we heard? With your absence, you get promoted, right? Is that what,
So you want to make Andy chair?
She's too nice. I wouldn't do that to her. So I'm willing to remain as chair. Our treasurer is willing to remain. Our secretary is willing to remain. Our assistant secretary treasurer is willing to go to vice chair. And we'll ask Ms. Andy Fair to be our assistant secretary treasurer. All right. All right. Do I hear a motion to close the slate as presented? Do I hear, and there's a second to that one? I forget the motion's a second to that. And then,
I'll second.
okay, so thank you. All those in favor, aye. So hearing no further nominations, is there a motion to accept the nominations as presented? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. And thank you for running a clean campaign. I guess. So Aaron, I'm going to turn number 2 over to you then, because of logistics that you've been working on.
Yeah,
and,
so I unfortunately haven't solidified anything as far as a change in venue. It's kind of tough looking toward moving a meeting later in the evening and struggling with venues which close at a certain time. It's difficult. I also haven't heard back from City of Erie Public Works as far as what it would cost to keep security here for an additional hour or hour and a half each month to facilitate our meetings being later. With that being said, I'm not quite sure how the board feels about moving forward with it. Certainly, I like to set it as early as possible because the city will be asking me for meeting times and dates for the calendar so they can get that published. However, I certainly, respect the board's wanting to move the meeting back a little bit later. I can't foresee if we kept the meeting here at City Hall that the security cost would be substantial, given that it's really only an hour. And they really, I would say, only need to have one person here. That's my opinion of the cities. So I guess I'll leave it up to you. We can move the meetings back to 4 if that was easier for board members to get here. Or I can keep looking for additional locations that we could potentially hold the meeting and go from there. Is that? It was the time, being out of there by 5.
Yeah, so because of security and then overtime that has to be paid if the meetings are too late, that's why we move the meetings up to 3. The 3 o'clock meetings tends to interrupt billable hours,
And the
our
only,
day jobs.
I'm always punctual.
Right.
yeah, I guess to that, the only other thing was if we move off-site, that Renee did mention that, it is the city's perspective that our meetings be televised, or at least, and having Cam come do something off-site would then potentially be a cost to the authority for them to video our meetings. So, we kind of got that catch-22 there. So, yeah.
So we'll continue to ask Aaron to move forward. I mean, 3:30 is better than 3, that's 4 would be preferred, but it seems like for me personally, later in the days, as late as possible.
We could always, I guess we can't always, another
another board takes it, we could, if we know there's gonna be a lot on the agenda, move it to an earlier time slot or something like that.
Mhm. That's always a possibility, absolutely. Yeah, I would say we have to at least assume an hour. I mean, 'cause on average, our meetings run 40,
Yeah.
60 minutes. So, I mean, 3:30 would probably be the latest to not incur any additional costs from security.
5:01 is when the overtime is paid, right?
4:31.
4:30.
Yeah, they close the doors at 4:30. Unless they're, the only days would be city hall study sessions and meetings in the evening that they stay open, so.
Or at 3:30, because we're at 3 o'clock now. 4 o'clock would take us to 5 o'clock, which
Yeah.
would be a half an hour of overtime,
Yep.
which would be preferred, I think. But if we get charged the overtime, that becomes well, we don't get water or snacks, so I figure that's the same. So-
Yeah.
You pay for carpet items, though,
What's that?
okay? You pay for the overtime with ARPA?
Yeah, no.
We'll hear back from Mr. Snippert then as he negotiates.
Okay, so we'll table this again.
Yeah.
And it's already tabled, so we don't have to.
Yeah, so
We
just, it
didn't
was
yeah.
good to get the input though from the other members, so I appreciate that, so. All right, item 3, the Housing Rehabilitation Report. Hello.
I don't have a full time to report this month. The most exciting thing is we are that close to closing out the current LHRD grant. We're at 102 units completed or in process. I received
Congratulations.
2 more applications today, and I've got 2 more that are closed. So we're very close to that 110, which will be great. Hopefully that'll be some time to hopefully get approved for another.
And that timeframe is the end of this month, right?
That's in standard, in past practice, they typically award prior to the end of September, which is the end of HUD's fiscal year, so.
All right, we'll say a prayer.
Please do. Art Healthy Homes, not a whole lot, again, to report there. We're not really approving new projects, probably until the spring at this point. I've got one to put through. The last couple ones, we'll see what shakes out after this construction season. Probably be able to put a few more through in the spring. That's about it. Homes, trucking along. That's really about it for us. Kendra and I had the opportunity to go to the Lead and Healthy Housing Conference in Savannah a couple weeks ago. Probably the best conference I've been to in terms of material. There was a lot of updates that are to things that are coming down the line from the EPA about changes to Title 10 and lead and all sorts of things. So that was very useful for me. And I think that's it. And I'm taking the test for a lead supervisor next week, so cross your fingers.
All right.
That's it.
Lots of prayers your way.
I'm real scared about that.
You'll be all right.
Oh, and we asked last meeting, what the current number of elevated EDL kids were. Current ones that I've either gotten processed or have some application materials for is 21,
Okay.
and that's active right now.
Are we getting ahead of the situation? Are we, is it hard to, it's such a large situation to,
So the newest Pennsylvania lead report just came out last week, so I haven't even got to review all of it entirely yet. It's a lot of new numbers.
Okay.
I mean, it just came out Wednesday, so I need a chance to look over it, but we've got a ways to go.
okay,
How about that?
all right.
But we are, Kendra has started doing, this is just a quick prototype, but we are starting to do a little bit of mapping of projects we've done. These are ARPA, these are Healthy Homes projects that we've done. We're going to start doing these for a lot of them, which will give us great insight to where do we need to be getting more outreach to, where we're not getting kids tested or
Yeah.
homes tested, things like that, or where we're seeing a lot of it and we know we need to dedicate resources there. So that'll be very helpful going forward. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, item 4, a letter from Build CDC and Daria Delvin.
Yeah. So if the board remembers back in March, you approved the slate of new housing production grants to, I think it was five or six entities. Build was one of those. They were awarded $156,031 for the purchase of 3 properties. Since then, they've lost those 3 properties. They were unable to acquire them for whatever reason. But so Daria reached out, asked if she could amend that and go after 3 additional projects. I said I didn't see a problem. We kind of structured it that it was, not for the 3 properties, not to exceed the 156 and change. However, I would, certainly appreciate if the board was given the opportunity to approve the properties in which, that way we could just continue with documentation. Our grants would coincide with that. So this is, she has identified the 3 properties that they're currently going after, 1032 East Avenue, 833 East Avenue, and 1115 East Avenue. The first 2, they're fairly close on completing sales contracts there. And number 3, the price is left blank currently because they're waiting on it. Of course, she would only have available the remaining balance of the 156. Of course, if there, for any reason, they didn't use that all, then we would have to figure out, as you as a board, what we wanted to do with any of the remaining funds with the Build CDC, whether it was to approve a 4th purchase or whatever the case would be at that point. So, but the ask is to accept, a motion to accept Build CDC transferring the use of the new production grant funds over to these 3 properties away from the ones that were previously approved in March.
And the properties that were previously approved are similar neighborhoods, similar, so it's.
Yes, they're staying in
It's
that
the same.
East Avenue, Wayne corridor.
So it's half a dozen, 6 of the other, okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then there's nothing substantial change in there.
No, the area is the same, the need's still the same. I believe the unit counts up a little bit. I didn't quite go back and look, but I believe the unit counts up 1 or
Well,
2 units.
And actually, the 3 property, there's a little more cohesiveness of the 3 properties, and there's also on higher visibility streets, East Avenue, so that would be actually a
Yeah.
plus, I think.
Usually not a fan of subdividing a stable single family home to multiple units, but this one builds critical mass. Seems necessary. I just don't want to set a precedent for future years when we do the RFP that it's, that you can have to lose site control. I think just for our records for future years, we consider maybe stronger site control or making more explicit that, if you submit a list of properties, it's just basically a license to hunt as opposed to, needing to come back for approval for other properties.
Good point. Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion to accept the proposal as presented by Daria Devlin? Is there a second? We're pausing for clarification.
Oh, 1032 East Ave, that was a large multi-unit structure.
1115.
Okay, so the second. No, okay, great. I just want to make sure we're clear and everything. So all those in favor, signify with aye. Thank you. Motion carries. And item 5 is the ARPA program update.
All right, so I provided the board a kind of a ARPA program update, just really updated some numbers as far as where the programs are going. Blight mitigation, of course, is moving ahead. We're identifying properties. We're working through the legal process of properties, with Gene and his team. So those are changing. Historic preservation projects are coming to completion. Those were all supposed to be completed here, this summer, early fall. So there's a few, I think there's 7 or 8 projects left to go. We've completed 29 and expended totally to this point total of $372,000, close to $373,000. So the biggest one in what is in what you have following that is the color map is East Bayfront Greenway Trail project and the substantial amount of work that we've been doing on that, not necessarily just on the property acquisition side of it, but also working with LSSE and their landscape architect to develop kind of a concept and really not just a concept for the initial phase of the park, but really something that we can continue to, something that will be affordable and something that we can replicate as we move into the next phase of this. So this is kind of what we've come up with, over the last, since June was the first public listening session held at MCRC with LSSE, gaining the public's input. There was a meeting on June 18th, with Joanne from LSSE and other staff as far as what was going on, and then we attended National Night Out. So we've tried to engage that neighborhood and those individuals who would potentially use this park multiple times and tried to come up with what fits best. And so currently, this is where we're at. They're into the phase. We've accepted this proposal. Now they're into creating construction drawings. We're going to schedule a meeting with Public Works and Engineering to work on potential stormwater management and things so we can have those in, with hopes that by early October we are prepared to put the project out for bid and get some hard numbers from some contractors on the implementation and moving forward with this plan. So there's also my plan that come November, that we put out an RFP for the next phase of this, which would be 7th to 8th Wallace to Ash, that kind of block area. We have acquired properties in there and certainly ready to continue to have this plan and design going forward so that we can keep moving this project and continue to look for funding to supplement the initial $1.5 million of city ARPA funds that has been, instrumental in getting this moving forward. But it's certainly shaping up to be a project that we can use as a placeholder for our vacant lots in areas in which there is no real investment for them. So I know that was a lot, but I certainly, the board, you've approved this, a lot of bits and pieces of this project, but I wanted to make sure you were seeing where we've come and so I'm proud of this project. Kendra has done a phenomenal job staying engaged with this and working with the community and trying to keep the pieces together. We've worked with Love Your Block, who's been good with engaging that East Bayfront neighborhood this summer, and groundwork team has been maintaining the current park that Serve Erie had pulled away from after they had kind of put it in. So we've been maintaining it and then using that to engage the public and having some stuff there over the summer. So as soon as the construction drawings are done, my plan is for the mayor's press conference to hold a press conference of the bids going out for it out at the park, so that I'll invite the board members if they want to attend, but we will have that out at the park is my plan, weather permitting. So
One thing that we talked about was, I recall, was lighting. I didn't see anything. I don't know if this has all the utility plan, but I don't see any of that lighting.
So the benches, those white square, the white triangle,
Yeah.
Modular bench are actually able to have lighting underneath them. So
Okay.
there is part of the construction drawings are for electrical within the park, and that's one of the things we have to work with Public Works
Okay.
on, how we want to facilitate having electrical system there, how they would like it, whether a building or some kind of other modular type electrical facility there. And we did ask for some options as far as some kind of pathway lighting, overhead lighting. So that was brought up at the last meeting. So they're going to work on adding that. This was the last drawing we had received about 3 weeks ago. So there's been a couple other adds to that since then.
And then is there any contemplation of like water? I know that we had the environmental group here earlier talking about single use, like refuse. I don't know if there was any contemplation of, and I don't even know if there's availability of having water sources on the paths. Is that something that's being entertained, or?
We did not discuss that.
Okay.
Certainly that's something we can work with the
I'm just,
ECA
if
on
there's
that.
grants, I'm not trying to add.
Yeah,
I'm just
no,
thinking
right
about
now,
it.
their biggest thing is rain gardens as part of storm water
Water.
management. Certainly we don't want to, there's no, the lot flows to 6th Street. There is no stormwater on 6th Street. So we want to do everything we can to mitigate any need for stormwater or catch basin there on 6th Street. So, but currently there is none. The park already exists. The lots already exist. The park was kind of loose. But I don't feel there's going to be a big issue. We're not adding a lot of surface area that's not, you know, so.
I would want to make sure that you get this thing as well as possible without it being a nuisance to these property owners.
Yeah, and back to the water issue, I know that our West Bay friend put a park in on West Fourth Street, and I remember being part of the conversation about making sure we had water to irrigate, but I hadn't even considered the possibility of water, potable water for consumption. So I can't help but think that our friends at the Water Authority would be a good place to start.
No, I'll bring that up. We have a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., standing meeting with LSSE.
Yeah,
I'll
so
bring
I
up
would
the water
encourage
thought
both
and-
irrigation
Yeah.
for landscaping as well as the.
There's certainly water available. I mean, we're
Yeah.
on two city streets that
Right.
have houses, so.
No,
So
it's good.
that's all I have for that, so.
Questions or comments additional? Okay. Hearing none, is there any other business to be brought to the authority board this afternoon?
My only reminder was that we'll have our summit on October 3rd from 12 to 4. I'll be sending out an agenda here probably sometime mid next week, kind of a preliminary draft agenda of my thoughts around that 4-hour block that I appreciate you taking the time to do, but that's it.
And you'll note the suite number at the Walden Building or the Renaissance Center. Do
Renaissance Center,
you know what?
suite.
Oh, I don't know this week yet.
So you have to find
I'll
out.
be sending out an email about any food allergies,
Okay.
something like that, so let's
Guys, I'm really sorry, I didn't have this on my calendar, it's Rutgers County that day, I'm not able to attend.
Oh,
I'm really sorry.
darn it. Okay.
I don't want to be the holdup, so, you know, I mean, obviously this is meant to be to engage the full board, but
Yeah,
I know reservations have already been made, for the space, so
Okay.
that is fully on me.
okay.
Well, I would say I would be flexible if you wanted to throw a, I'm not sure if it's going to make you unhappy, because I would never want Cynthia unhappy.
As I say, Cynthia and I will look at the calendar
Yeah.
and see. It's a rough couple weeks there, but
Okay.
we'll see. See what we can do. So,
Yeah, I can.
Okay. okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate you letting us know, and we'll see what we can do. I'd like to make it.
That time, it's like, that's not.
I did the same thing when we were scheduling this, because Tracy and I will be going for the PA Council of the Arts yearly meeting, the 1st and 2nd. And so I was like, oh, but mine was, yeah, so, okay, we'll look at that, and we'll see what we got. Yeah.
Thanks for letting us know. All right, if there's no other further business, the motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. I appreciate staff help and everything, all the work that you do to get us to these meetings.
Yep.